we've heard about these things, like, for example, Robert Orossi had a UFO crash in his backyard. I don't think that was ever on mainstream news. It might have been. Um, but I mean, these sort of events like Roswell, 1947, there were multiple crashes. That wasn't something that was really put out there. So I feel sometimes when whatever story is on mainstream news is already a story that they're prepared to create a false narrative or a projection on. Like if it made it to all these just Facebook news stories and it's on NBC, ABC, and it's really out there, I feel that they're prepared on some level to present that to the public because they have something else that they're preparing us for that might not be in our best interest. But in light of this, all the experts come forward that they cannot ignore. So when these kind of subjects light up, people are going to be willing to talk. The timing of them being willing to talk, I think, is in the same timing as the possible fake alien invasion, more mainstream disclosure, which is a steered narrative that would be the next wave or next level of this sort of New World Order agenda. I feel that this is a huge catalyzing event to take place because it's pulling out of the woodworks people that would be more expertise on the subject. So yes, they can try and do censorship, but once they let the cat out of the bag, it's going to create curiosity. Why are they all of a sudden silenced now? So I feel
Right.
like, it's created enough of a storm for the right sort of and a good kind of catalyst, which usually happens when there's like a psyops or a false flag. I'm not saying this is, but if they wanted to steer it into one to then push it into that,
Mm-hmm.
we've been in this field for so long, so many numerous individuals, experiencers, and abductees and contactees. I mean, the show X-Files, all the movies. I mean, it's like, unless you're really, really, which a lot of humans are, unfortunately, just
Head in the sand.
completely just steered by everything you see on the news. I
Mm.
mean, this is the opportunity to really start to research what have these disclosure people been talking about this whole time.
Right.
Now that we see this in front of our face, we're not just going to listen to the news because there's countless documentaries, there's countless books, and there's countless stories. So I hope that this will ignite a greater awakening than keep people in that sort of blind vision of, okay, whatever the mainstream media chooses to how they choose to define it or project upon it, that's the only place they're going to look. So I
Mm-hmm.
see the timing with, Stephen Greer in Washington, D.C., Contact in the Desert, a very significant time this summer. Just in general, I mean, we go into the astrology, we don't need to, but it's just we're in a critical time,
Mm-hmm.
and
Agreed.
I feel like it's going to have its false narrative and projections of this is what it means to then steer us into something that would be a trap, and then it opens up something for a greater awakening
I
of
love it.
more attention on the truth coming out of those that individuals that have all the resources that one would want in the face of processing UFO craft
I
and
love it.
beings. Yeah, well, there are these sort of inside wars or battles, white hats, black hats, just there's positive military, and then there's just sort of the mind controlled military.
Hmm.
And then how all that relates to secret space programs and then just much larger picture of, alien agendas, negative alien agendas, controller groups. I mean, it's so multi-leveled and there's so much compartmentalism, and then there's ways for some of these doors to open up between the compartments.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's kind of happening. I mean, so much has already been exposed. So many whistleblowers have come out. Some whistleblowers haven't maybe been able to reveal certain things, but we've been connecting a lot of dots with all of this. I feel that they have been watching the disclosure community. They've tried to infiltrate it, and they've done a pretty good job in some cases, but not completely and totally. Right? We see all of that. I feel like this is mimicking what we've seen so many times. Now it's a news story, and when you see things like or psyops or kind of false flags, that kind of came up for me too. Um, as far as that could be a possibility. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll just kind of leave it at that. As far as your question about the inner battles, or what was the question? It was just about this particular person coming forward and
Right. Well, the
how that was even
contradiction.
allowed. It's a
Right.
contradiction. Yeah, I mean,
No comment from the
It's
White
hard
House, by
to
the
know
way.
what, like, what's in charge of what. Even the dark technologies or the good tech, it's dark if it's in the wrong hands. It can be beneficial technology if it's in the right hands. So I think with so much being exposed, the fact that Trump was able to be in office for as long as he was, and that there is white hat forces and military, and even Eisenhower signed an executive agreement saying that certain individuals that are part of these particular sections of military are going to be legally allowed to come forward, that nobody can dispute it when it's time to speak. And that was a part of the USMC special section, US Marine Corps special section connected to ET groups. And so this is the kind of stuff that I've heard that Randy Kramer talked about when I first met him, that it was going to be legally acceptable, so that national security, you know how they say this is a threat to national security and they're going to get you in trouble for it, that wouldn't be allowed. And that's
Right.
why I think this is a similar case, if not connected to the same thing I'm talking about, where a doorway was able to be opened because there's no longer that threat of national security being something that could cover a person like him up. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Was
But
it your great-grandfather that signed that into motion?
yeah, well, that's what Randy Kramer's saying about
Initially.
this. Yeah, it was Ike's Force USMC Special Section, which is different than the White. Well, it's connected to the White Hats, but it's the positive military forces connected to the secret space programs. Mars Defense Force is what Randy was a part of,
Right.
and that there would be a time where if things got too far in this particular window that we're in, because these were the dates, that it was signed into executive order that you would be able to speak and not have the national security cover.
Retaliate.
Yeah, and I'll get that information before we close. You guys, like, move on. I'll find it, and like maybe when we
That would be
close,
great.
I can just read it.
That would be great.